What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today's Tuesday, and every Tuesday we're talking LAFC. They got a big win against RSL, back-to-back wins. So we're gonna dive deep into that. There's another big game for LAFC tomorrow against Austin FC. So that's another big one for them. It's been an interesting season for LAFC. So it looks like things potentially may be turning the corner here. So let me introduce my guests. We got LAFC Live back. How you doing, LAFC Live?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Gio. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to talk LAFC. It's been a week, so I'm ready to get into it.
Let's do it. And of course, we got Andy Diosa from Yahoo. Andy, how you doing?
What up, y'all? I had to wear the Real Madrid shirt today, not because I'm a Real Madrid fan, just for the Barcelona fans that were. That's the only reason I wore
Man
it.
is trolling already. I love it. And we got LAFC Edge, aka Marvin. Marvin, let's get into you a little bit. How long have you been an LAFC follower, supporter? Give us a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, I'm actually day one. I didn't really follow the MLS before LAFC, so I started around 2017 before there was like any players on the roster or anything, and just a day one member, 3252, and still going to every game.
Still going. So, and you go now as LAFC Edge. So, look,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like we got a lot of different voices out there, and like I was telling you, I was like, hey, let's get you on here. Let's talk about LAFC. LAFC Live. What were your quick thoughts about that 3-2 victory that they had this past weekend?
Well, we got to win, so that's important. And even though the third goal was a fluke goal, we'll take anything right now. Atuesta, of course, stood out. Chicho lighting it up finally, which is nice to see. And Bryce Duke, he might look nice off the pitch, but he's a little pit bull on the pitch, and I like to see that a lot. It's nice to see the players that, they're not the big dogs per se, stepping up while, Bella's gone, Brian's gone, Rossi's at Fenerbahce. It's really nice to see. And I'm not going to get carried away yet over 2 wins because I still don't forget about that 8-game streak that, we didn't win a game. So I'm not going to be getting carried away here. But good win. Very good win.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, hey, look, anytime that happens, you don't hold on for it too long. You guys got some momentum now, so it's looking good. Edge, what were your thoughts on this past weekend?
I thought it was a solid win. Of course, it's not cool to win with a known goal and all, but I honestly think that LAFC would have kept going and probably scored that third goal if it wasn't for that own goal, to be honest. But I still wouldn't get too excited quite yet. Like, I think this game was really important to get those 30 points and get to that 8th place spot, tied with the RSL in points. But I think in order to get this momentum that we really need, this Real Salt Lake win was really important. So I'm glad we, got the win.
Yeah, Andy, let's talk about Chicho. Let's talk about your boy, aka Maluma. He came with the sauce, man. I've been telling people, like, give him some time, give him some time to get adjusted, give him some time. And he finally broke out. There was little glimpses that I saw that I was like, okay, this dude's a baller. You just got to give him some time to see how he adjusts with his teammates. He broke out this game. He had the first goal in 19, 20 seconds. And then he had the second goal as a header. What was your thoughts on Chicho?
That's what he does, man. He's a scorer. That's what he did in Colombia. It's what he's done basically his whole career. That's why they brought him in. I mean, I think when you look at LAFC and them missing somebody that could really put some balls in the net, that was what got people excited when Chicho got signed here. And obviously a lot of people may have not been too familiar with him and seeing highlights and just seeing what he was able to do. But, I mean, like I mentioned before, he played on one of the biggest teams in Colombia, and he was the leading goal scorer in the league. So that's his quality. You mentioned it. You have to give him a little bit of time. You have to let him get acclimated, especially because Bob likes to move those top 3 players around so much. But I mean, what's his 4 goals now that he has there? And it's just he still hasn't even been here that long. So for him to be able to A, score, or B, also do some other things that Bob has mentioned that he has really liked about his personality, about his qualities on the field, that's great time for LAFC all around.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking like a baller to me. I mean, this may be early to call, but I think that may be we might have found LAFC's next superstar, depending what may happen with Carlos Vela. You know, we'll get into Carlos Vela later, but those I'm seeing glimpses. He was doing the chant at the end of the game. He loves it here. You know, he's a very flashy guy. He always be rocking. You know, he got the swag. Always be rocking all the swag. And I was like, yo, LA definitely fits him, man. He got this. He has the swag, the lifestyle, and everything. I was like, yo, and he shows it on the field too, which is the most important thing outside of those things. Live, what are your thoughts on Chicho?
I'm really proud and excited to have a player like this come to LAFC, and he's doing what he was brought in to do, which is score goals. He had 2 goals in the past game. Really great to see. And I just want to see his progression going forward. Is he going to keep the momentum? If Vela coming back, is that going to say, oh, if the superstar is back, I have to take it down a notch? Am I going to feed off of him? What's the plan going forward? So tomorrow is going to be a big sign of where his head is at. And also the distribution to Chicho is going to be really important too. You feed him the ball, you're going to score goals like you just saw. So I want to see his progression going forward, and let's see what happens the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, it's looking good. And another thing that I know Bob talked about this, or I think he was asked about him being a hold-up striker. I mean, that's something that LAFC has not had. Someone that can hold the ball up there physically, because there was a couple of times when Chicho got the ball and RSO center backs were trying to get it. He just out-muscled them. He knows how to put his body right, and I think that is such an underrated talent, because especially when you're getting pressed on or you need someone just to hold the ball for just a couple of seconds to give a couple of your players a breather, or just open up the wings a little bit more. I haven't seen that maybe when BWP was here, maybe at times Adama Diomande, but the class and the way he did it against RSL, it was just so smooth, and you knew the ball wasn't going to get away from him. Edge, what are your thoughts on Chicho?
I'm loving him just like all the LAFC fans. And my main concern right now is how he would do in the future with someone like Vela next to him. I think in his previous games when he first started, we were doing 3 up front with Rossi, Arango, and Vela. And obviously Rossi and Vela are the superstars of LAFC. And I wonder how, that affected his play. And Bob would rotate him to the wing at times, which I don't think he's as strong. I think he's a very central striker. So now that we've been doing this 5-3-2 formation, I think he's been shining a lot more. He gets to be the star striker. Vela's out. So I guess like my concern is how will the team and him adapt when Vela and others come back that are important, even Rayito, I really hope to see the 3-5-2 with Rayito and Arango up front. I think their speed could be, pretty electric, and I would love to see their chemistry build up and see how a 3-5-2, even 4-4-2 would play with 2 strikers. Because I think we've been doing the 2-winger system for a while. We became pretty flat and predictable that way, and I'm really curious just to see how we could play now with strikers.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's going to be the interesting thing, right? Because once you add, you said Rayito, and Vela, the formation is going to have to change, but which way is it going to change? Talking about Chicho, we got to show the goals. Here's the first goal.
Krylak will be the target at the top, and he has been a guy who has gotten his against LAFC. We are underway here at Banc of California Stadium, and LAFC is back in black. And right away, Eduardo Atuesta with the captain's armband finds Bryce Duke. He gets it inside Masovsky. The target, Chicho! Yeah!
I was at the stadium and I was watching. I was like, "Are they about?" I couldn't believe they scored that fast because of the way the season has gone so far, right? And I was like, "This is the best way. This is the best thing." What was that?
I was still literally eating my nachos when the game was just starting. I was like, holy shit,
Yeah, no, I mean that's the way I think you want to start this game. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm glad it was Chicho, and also also players like Bryce Duke, who was part of that play, Eduardo Atuesta that got that on. When you see him score that fast, what was your thoughts? What went through your mind?
My thoughts in the beginning of the game and the end of the game were pretty much the same, and it was wow, LAFC is finally catching some breaks. And I think, like you said, I think because of the way the season has been going, it's not really typical for you to see them score fast, but never mind that fast. I mean, how many games have we seen this season that LAFC has dominated play and then not been able to score first? The opposing team scores first, and then then the game there on their back foot. So them scoring that quickly was crazy, and it kind of early goal changes a lot of things. And I think that, like you guys mentioned, I mean, the goal that gave him the victory ends up being an own goal, but that's once again a thing of catching breaks that the team hasn't been getting this season. So I think it was kind of sandwiched the right way with that opening goal being 20 seconds in, which is now part of LAFC's history, as I like to say. And then that last goal being an own goal, which, hey, man, at this point of the season, 3 points is 3 points, however you could get them. And I think for me personally, it's good to see that player like that is able to come in and make a mark that quickly. And I think that he's been pretty good in what he's done so far. I think he's been good, and he's spoken to the media a lot. And just his mentality is really what I'm taking away from what he does. I feel like a lot of the Colombian players that come here are kind of the same boat, but he's just very happy and humble to be here. And everything is about the team. It's not about him. So he's going to be probably quickly LAFC's leading goal scorer this season. And he's clearly has his mind set to, the right focus. So I'm happy to see him flourish in that way.
I would also just add, I think he's also different from some of the Colombians that the team has. He's, like I said, he's more flashier, but he back, not that the other players don't, but like he backs it up. And when Chicho does something, right, just with the style and everything, I think to me it just makes it so much bigger, so much better. But like it's easy to fall in love with him a little bit more because of what obviously how he approaches the game, how he plays the game, and then and he has I think he has that charisma that like, okay, I want to support him because of what he's doing. Obviously he's flashing, does everything. He has the little, I don't know if it's the anime thing, peace sign. I may get killed if it's not anime, but like that thing, a lot of people can connect with that. That's a different way to connect with that. And I think it's pretty cool. Hector in the chat says a month ago we would have tied or lost. I feel like the defense down the stretch won the game. I feel the same way. I feel the same way on that. I was like, I didn't know if they were going to get the win. I was like, maybe a tie, but yeah, down the stretch. How'd you feel about this game live once you saw? Well, let's play the second goal. Let's play the second goal
between those two, working well together. Lofted.
So 2 goals in 30 minutes. There was a lot of back and forth. How'd you feel about LAFC being able to hold off RSL with that 3-2 victory?
I was waiting for it to happen again where we blow it in the 90th minute or something like that. Like, you can kind of feel it in your stomach like, okay, I'm waiting for it. But defense did their job. Mohamedou Fall, I mean, he's still really, really young. I know people are acting like he's the second coming of Sergio Ramos or something, but
whoa, who is that? Who is doing that?
We've seen the pictures of them with the Maradona, the Pele, the sombrero, which I took a picture from some other Twitter account, by the way, but I won't get into that. But what I will say is I think you pump the brakes just a little bit. He's still a young kid. If there's a mistake, it's going to happen. It is what it is. But I think the defense really showed the strength in this game, and let's build on it. And let's just keep it rolling, because you don't want to have that feeling in your stomach every single game that, hey, it's coming, set piece, corner kick, any of those, So good win, good defensive effort, and let's move on to tomorrow.
Yeah. Edge, how'd you feel about LAFC finally being able to close off a team and not giving up the tie?
I still have a bit of issues with the defense. When I analyze the goals and I go back on them, I see Murillo was caught up front way too much when they scored the second goal. It's like he was almost like in a striker position. I'm like, what are you doing up there? And he's the one that left his man wide open, which led to the goal. I think overall it was a team win more than a defensive win, in my opinion. I think towards the end when you saw Atuesta yelling at the other players and everything, it was a real concerted team effort to get this win and not let the Real Salt Lake score on us at the last minute like always. So I would still argue that the defense is good. I think it's pretty good. I think we're getting there, and I think it's progressing. Fall, I think this has been one of his weakest games, to be honest. And I think it's good because, I mean, obviously he's young. He's only, 18 years old, and we can't expect him to be playing like a consistent 30-year-old experienced MLS player. Of course, he's going to make mistakes, and he showed some of that. He's not an invincible player. He's an 18-year-old kid, and he's super talented. And I look forward to seeing him become. I really, really hope LAFC keeps him for years to come, and we develop him and he becomes a really like one of the best center backs in MLS. So, but I think we're not invincible quite yet.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that. I think Fall had looked good up until this game. I think it was probably his worst performance yet. I mean, but to talk about an 18-year-old who essentially, the previous game had scored 2 goals and did what he did, I think he's bound to have a bad game, right? And obviously,
and he raised the bar really high. It's like he had 100% A+ game, and this might have been a B-, but.
Yeah, so here in the chat, CeeLo says we got lucky with that own goal miscommunication from Djokovic to Ochoa. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. How that goal happened, but I was like, are things finally starting to break LAFC's way? And this may be it. This may be the game that because right now they're currently sitting in 8th place, and outside looking in, there's a lot more optimism of this team, right? At least making the playoffs. There's still questions and concerns, like we said about the defense, because you do have to clean that up. But I mean, it's looking more optimistic than we were a month ago about LAFC. Now let's talk about the newest signing. We have a question here from Jason. He says, "What is your thought on Blackman signing, and what does it mean for Romero?" Obviously, Andy, I think we're in the press call. I think you asked Bob Bradley, and that's the question I was going to ask. What are your thoughts on that? And I think we should also address, Bob Bradley mentioned that they wanted to add depth. I'm just paraphrasing here. And the reason for the signing was because Pablo Cisnega broke his nose. A guy fractured his nose, and he had to have like a procedure. I'm assuming he had to have surgery or something on his nose. And I think also, but the caveat to that as well is that it's an international spot, because you're bringing an international player for a goalkeeper spot. There's plenty of other backup goalkeepers that they could have brought in with the United States. But Andy, what are your thoughts on the signing?
Yeah, that's why my question was like, what's the plan here? Because basically what I asked them, for the people that weren't on the call or didn't hear, was there's been so much turnover in the net for the 4 years that they've existed. Like, what's the plan bringing in a new keeper, and what does that mean for the future of Tomas or Pablo? And like Gio said, he basically just said it was like a depth thing, and obviously Pablo's procedure is a surprise because we didn't know about that. But at the end of the day, I think there's something to be said there. Like, you're not gonna, in a position that has been rotating so much, you're not necessarily looking to fill that spot, knowing that there's probably anywhere else on the field that you could reinforce that I think would have probably made people feel a lot more comfortable than bringing in a keeper. And also, it kind of just brings the same narrative back of like, when you have a keeper that's, I mean, I don't think Tomas has been bad. I don't think he's been out of this world, but he hasn't been an issue for LAFC. The same way I didn't think Pablo Cisnega was an issue for them. Neither did I think that Tyler Miller was an issue for them at certain points. I think the only one that really had some problems was Kenneth Ramirez. So I think this is an interesting move to look through, kind of look to the future and see like what they're doing. I think to me, it signals that Pablo's probably gone and already has his next move in mind, or LAFC has that in mind. But once again, I think if you're giving Tomas so much shine this season, I think that the best move would have probably not been to do this, just to kind of keep his confidence up. But he knows he's the starting keeper going forward for the end of the season, at least. Whatever happens beyond that, I guess we can't speculate on too much. But yeah, to me, it's a very interesting move that signifies that probably Pablo is done in LA for sure.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I should have added to that, he's Jamal Blackman is into the contract, or a free agent to this year with the club option for 2022. Let me get you guys' thoughts on that, and then I'll give my thoughts. Live. What are your thoughts on the new signing?
It was definitely out of the blue. I wasn't expecting another goalie to come in, and I didn't expect Pablo to break his nose, but I guess it's kind of a depth signing. So two things. I mean, the depth is one, and then two, that just means that Thomas Romero needs to be on his toes, because at LAFC, the goalie change is just like every other week. So, I mean, if Thomas, for some reason, knock on wood, there's 3 goals in tomorrow, you better believe that somehow Jamal Blackman's going to be starting somehow. when he's able to. And I guess it's just best man is going to play. That's how it's going to be now. So we'll see. And he's like, what, 6'6" or something like that? So he's a towering, athlete in the goal. And I know he's a Chelsea product, I guess, but he never really played for Chelsea. He was always loaned out like Chelsea does with all their youngsters, and they sell him. So we'll see. I mean, if he gets an opportunity, we'll see how he does.
Yeah, Edge, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the signing?
I'm going to give an edgy take on this a bit, and I think that I think it was a coincidence that they signed him when Pablo broke his nose. I think this was a long time coming, and I think they knew Pablo was his contract's running out, and they wanted to look at their options, and it wouldn't hurt to look at options that could perhaps help us in the playoffs. So I think I really like Romero, but I'm not entirely convinced that he's a goalie that could win us the MLS Cup if we were to be in the final. He could, it's possible, but I wouldn't take my chances on it. And I think that we need to find an elite level goalie if we ever really want to get serious about the Cup. And will that be Jamal? I'm not sure. But I think, if we're going to experiment, now's the time to do it. We have quite a few games before the playoffs. I would say experiment, put him in the goal a few times and see what we get. Maybe he ends up being an elite goalie that we like. Galaxy did the same thing with Bond. Bond ended up being a pretty damn elite level goalie. And, it's hard. I mean, they're a big part. He's a big part of the recent LA Galaxy success this season, and I think LAFC needs something like that in their backline. I personally think we've never had a good goalie, and it's always been something that I've had a grudge against with the front office. And, while people might be team Cisniega and all these other team Vermeer from the past, I've never been team any goalie that we've ever had. And I really think we need to keep going with it. Romero, I think, has a lot of potential, and I would love him to stay. But I think he's development, and I think that I would love to see who he is in 2 to 3 years. I don't know how we get there and if we play him every game, but I think we definitely, if we ever really want to get serious about the Cup, in my opinion, we need to have an elite experienced goalie.
Fair point. And Foot brings up a great point. He said the new goalie was news last week. When did Santiago break his nose? Wasn't he on the bench Sunday?
Correct.
There you go. Exactly. Sorry, Bob. I think that was an excuse potentially. I don't know this for a fact, but Cisneros was there. You know what I'm saying? Cisneros was there. His nose did not look broken to me. Anybody else can tell me that. This is what I think. I think with so much of the turnover, what Andy said, I just don't think they really believe that Tomas Romero is the number one guy. But I also don't believe that the reason for LAFC's struggles has been the goalkeeping position. It has not been Tomas Romero. It's been the defense. And I think the only thing for me is where I kind of question, it's a little questionable, is it's because you're using an international spot on the goalkeeping position, which means you only have you only get 8 international spots. So I mean, typically international spots around the MLS, you want to use, and the Galaxy did not use an international spot on Jonathan Bond because he's an American. I think using an international spot, from what I've seen gathered in the last 4 years that I've been covering the MLS, is not one of the best. It could be one of the best signings, but like you typically you could use that for defense, midfield, or forward. Like when you look at this team outside of Tomas Romero, if you wanted to bring him in a replacement, you could. I really believe you could have brought a replacement that was an American player or an MLS caliber player. But I just don't think they really believe I don't really think they believe Tomas Romero, like you said, to your point, could take him over there. And I don't think some of those goals, maybe the second goal that he was scored on, you can look at it. But I have not looked at a game once this year. Maybe one that I'm like, okay, that game was on Tomas Romero. It was more like the defense and something like that. So I feel like maybe if they would have brought in another defender or something like that. But I just think using an international spot hasn't worked well. And, we have also got a comment. He's like, I hope Jamal's not the next Vermeer. I hope so not. I hope he's not either. But we could see.
On that point, I think that's something to analyze, right? That they use a very precious international spot on him. So what does that say? Do they really want him as a second or third?
He's not going to be a backup. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. Yeah. When you use such a critical roster building is when you
especially
use
LAFC, who uses so many international
yeah,
players.
so many is so to me, don't be surprised if Jamal Blackman, whenever he's available and all the visa stuff, he's gonna get a shot. He's gonna get a starting role. He's
I hope
gonna
so.
yeah. I mean, I like Romero, but I think to me the writing's on the wall. Jamal Blackman is gonna start one of
And
these games.
I would argue that our goalie hasn't been a problem. Of course, the defense has, but nothing is black and white or one thing or the other. It's all been accumulative of the defense, the midfield, and even the forwards not scoring enough. The goalie could. There's games where we've lost by one at the last minute, and if a goalie could make that clutch save for us, that's the difference between 3 points, 1 point, or 0 points.
Well, that's how they made me feel it.
And this has been a very unlucky season for LAFC.
Yep.
Just, really stupid goals and all that. And if we just had a clutch elite goalie who could just save us a few times, a few games, think about it. If he helped us for 2 games, we'd be 6 points higher. Just 2 games. There were so many games. I forgot how many points we've lost in games at the last minute. If he would have just helped with 2 games.
I mean, I look, a lot of those goals that were scored last minute, it doesn't matter if you're 6'6". I think those were going in. I mean,
not all of them. Some of them, of course.
I was like, yo, those
across the span of 24 games, I guarantee you there was at least 2 or 3 where Romero could have, helped us out there a bit.
Hey, look, fair enough.
Or the manager could have made the correct sub, but it's a different thing.
Look, that is 100% fair criticism. That is 100% fair criticism because, look, to ask to, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a stretch to ask. We can't go through all the goals and the scenarios and stuff like that. But I get what you're trying to say. If you have an elite goalkeeper, right, it could make the difference. And I've seen the difference with LA Galaxy.
Correct.
I've seen the difference because the LA Galaxy's defense. Oh my God, you look at that defense. But I feel like
Bond has given Galaxy alone just so many points on the table.
Yeah. But he's been there from the start. That's the only difference. And you're getting a goalkeeper towards the end. Andy, what are your thoughts? Anything else to add on the goalkeeping situation? Or are you, anything to comment?
I just think it's funny because Tyler Miller might be one of the best things happening in Minnesota right now. And it's funny how things happen in MLS. Tyler Miller's kept that team alive so many times this season.
Andy's team, Tyler Miller.
I've always been a big Tyler Miller fan, but it's just funny because goalie is the only isolated position on the field. If you think about it, you have nobody else that really affects what you do. So to me, it's once again, if Jamal comes in and gets a chance throughout the remainder of the season, if they do make the playoffs, fine, whatever. I do think that's likely. But once again, it's the same story over and over. You're kind of continuing this narrative from year 1, year 2, whatever, that it's probably not something that you necessarily need to be, I guess, addressing right now when you look at the way LAFC season is going, when you look at needs around the field. So, I mean, listen, he could come in and be a great keeper. He could come in and not be a great keeper. I just think that, once again, for keepers, confidence is key. And I think, obviously, Tomas has had it because he's gotten the green light this season. And if things go differently, then his confidence will not be there. So if they expect it to be a competition, like they wanted, I guess, Vermeer and Cisniega to be at one point, it's probably not going to pan out that way. So, yeah, this leads me to believe that they're going to go all in with him being number 1. But whether or not it pans out to be good, I don't know if we could tell. Like you said, there's a lot of other things that need to be cleaned up before we put, I guess, all the blame on goalies.
Yeah, I just don't think the blame's on goalies or anything like that. But look, if this is the route, we just have to see how it plays out with Jamal, and then we could praise the front office for the decisions, or we'll have to come back here and talk about it, because I think it's fair. Because there's never been a point to me, once Tomas Romero was a goalkeeper, I was like, all right, he has been the best option that I've seen, better option than Kenneth Vermeer. Pablo Cisnegas, I mean, Pablo wasn't doing good, but I think we're seeing different things from what the front office is seeing. It's clear, right? I think if we're Marvin, this is the first time I've had you on the show, but I think we may be seeing a lot of different things, and I think they really do value a goalkeeper. But I just feel like these moves could have been done a lot sooner, potentially. Obviously, Diego Rossi opens up a spot. But I mean, yeah, I just think it's just interesting how that went. So we'll see, and hopefully, go ahead.
Yeah, this is our 3rd keeper in the season. I haven't really heard of another team doing 3 keepers in one season.
Yeah,
it seems like each
injury. That's it.
No, each LAFC keeper, like Tyler Miller, yeah, he looked good, but then I'm gonna be honest with you, Ibrahimovic completely just ruined him, and that's why he had to just leave. No,
That's all I remember from Tyler Miller. I remember Zlatan just
yeah,
like
every time he saw Ibrahimovic with the ball, he filled his pants, and that was it. So he had to leave. And then you had Vermeer, who looked good for one game, and then he was getting caught out like 30 yards, and every time he had the ball at his feet, he would have a heart attack. Cisenega had a great tournament in the Orlando back to MLS tournament. That's where he really looked good. Comes back over here, average, I guess. And then we have now Thomas Romero, who's been looking decent, but it seems like every LAFC goalie has those like moments. Oh yeah, they look good, and then they just start to fade and fade and fade away. So I guarantee, like I think I mentioned earlier, Thomas Romero somehow tomorrow lets in 3 goals. Knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen. Jamal Blackman's going to be starting next week probably if the visa stuff is all cleared, guaranteed.
I think with honestly, I think even without the 3 goals, I think Jamal he has to get a look because they're not committed to him long term. That's another thing. He only has these couple months till the end of the year. That's the biggest thing, and then the club option. So they're like you got to plug him in. I just feel like at the end of the day, he's going to get whether Tomas Romero gives up 3 goals or he has a spectacular game. Jamal Blackman is going to start a game. He's or he may start for the rest of the season. They've seen enough from him at Chelsea, wherever he's getting loaned at, to bring him in and to use an international spot. This to me, the writings on the wall. Jamal Blackman eventually will be the starter. I don't know when, but he has to get a shot. I just that's just the way I see it. But we'll see what happens. Let's talk about we have live here. We got to talk about Bob Bradley. 2 games, back-to-back wins. They beat SKC, and then they won. Should we say a game of luck, a lucky game, lucky on goal that they got them to win? But 6 points. I mean, you'll take them any way you want them. How are you feeling about Bob Bradley now? Have your thoughts changed about Bob Bradley since the last time you were here?
Well, I just want to apologize to nobody because I don't take any. I'm not flip flopping. I'm not these fans I see after one game. I'm bought back in after 6 points. Okay, well that's you. I'm balled out all the way. I'm not changing. I told you the beginning of the season, before this whole 8-game streak and the flaws in his game and management, that if you don't win the MLS Cup, you got to bounce. And that stayed the same for me. I'm not changing the perspective of how I look at this team. Yeah, I don't want to see him. I don't. My expectations and standards for this team for this season is to win MLS Cup. Is to win MLS Cup. That's it. I know where we're at right now, but that's it. And if you can't get it done, then you can't be here. That's pretty much it.
So that would only the only thing that would change your mind at this point is Bob Bradley winning an MLS Cup.
That's it. Getting to the playoffs, Spain, okay, that's fine. But no, I actually have standards for this football club. So
fair. Look, that's fair enough. Edge, what are your thoughts? I know this is your first time here. We don't know what are your thoughts on Bob Bradley. How you feeling about the coach?
I think it's hard to say because
hey, look. The one thing about this show, we keep it honest. So we need your honest thoughts.
I mean, honesty is what I do. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it in any way. I'm not of Team Bob in or Bob out. I'm okay with Bob out. I'm open to the idea of Bob out. I'm more of Thornton out, and that's I have a large problem with his philosophy that so many fans.
Okay, let's go into it. We got time. Let's go into it.
All right. Well, when you hear him on podcasts and stuff like that, he talks about the return on investment in players and how like LAFC has to be a selling team, a youth selling team, and bringing players from South America or wherever. I think that philosophy is good, but it has to be balanced. And it's when your whole philosophy is based on profit, your team is going to pay. We're not, we're not Ajax. We're not those elite teams that could bring youth from all over the world that's truly talented. I think we're trying to like find this like golden gem. I think we were lucky with Rossi and Atuesta, more Rossi than Atuesta, to be honest. And I think that got to the front office's head thinking like, hey, we're like a gold mine for South America and we're going to bring all this youth and sell them and it's going to be super easy. And it didn't work out and it's not going to work out. And they need to balance the roster with MLS experienced just overall experienced older players right now, where he deconstructed the team to the point where it's not recognizable anymore. And what's on the field no longer had any form of chemistry and no MLS experience. And I think that's what happened in that 8-game span. Now things are getting better. The players are starting to get chemistry, and that could build, but I still don't believe in his roster building capabilities. And I think that's what really has bit LAFC in the ass. And I think we need a different person as a general manager, to be honest, unless he changes his philosophy. But I don't think so, because I think this is a very big ego-based thing where it's like LAFC is special in that we bring and we find these like really special talents from South America. And I don't know. I don't think we're that special at it, to be honest. I think we're kind of lucky with Rossi. And but yeah,
look, I appreciate your honest thoughts, because that was one of the things that I had mentioned at the start of the, when I looked at the season, I was like, they're missing some of that experience, and there's too much young talent on this team, and I think that when you roster construct a team, you got to have some youth. You look at all the teams. There's some veterans there. There's too many young players here. Chicho is amazing, but if you would have had Chicho at the start of the season, this team could have potentially looked different. It could have been looking at the top of the standings. But typically the way sports typically work, the way I've seen it work, is typically coaches go first before GM. So I don't know if JT's going out before Bob. So
yeah. No, I was for both going, but I'm like, hey, nobody's talking about Thorrington. Like, come on, guys. Like, Bob could only do so much with what he's given. Come on,
Look, I will agree with that. I will agree with that.
With the MLS All-Stars game, we beat La Liga. Don't undermine that. Don't undermine that loss. I mean, La Liga cared. They did care, and they put their players there.
Oh, they cared. Yeah. I was at the game. It was an amazing game.
And I'm not saying Bob is going to bring us the cup. I've kind of lost hope. I do see a better Bob this season. That's weird to say because we're doing so shitty. But you know what's better is the fact that he's experimenting. And before we were 3 years of the 4-3-3 that was getting like way too predictable and flat, and I just couldn't stand it. Now at least we're seeing a 3-5-2 and different types of play. And while we're losing, at least we're losing at the right time to experiment and figure out these formations, because we need to have more than one formation. And if we could develop these 3-5-2, 5-3-2, 4-4-2, 4-3-3, we need those kind of formations in our artillery, and our players need to have experience with those types of formations. All of our players only knew 4-3-3 at one point. So right now is the time to lose. And I really hope that these.
I don't know if any time is a time to lose. I think you either learn.
I think we could get into the playoffs.
I was like, you got to get it.
Now's not the time to lose. The 3 games ago was like serious mode, and we need to win every game now. But I'm saying when we did lose, it was okay. We still could.
I don't know, man. I don't think any time is okay time to lose. But look, let's get Andy's thoughts. Andy, how you feeling? How you feeling about Bob? Obviously, he was on the press call. I forgot who asked him, but they were like, "Has anything changed?" And Bob was like, word for word. I know this is what he said. He says nothing has changed with these 2 wins. What are your thoughts on Bob Rally after these 2 games?
I mean, I think it's true to an extent. I think we just get so wrapped up in obviously results and moments, and 8 games is a long time to go without winning the game. But then you could go on an 8-game run out of nowhere, and then things are completely different. So, I mean, I'm not going to look at these 2 games and say, oh my God, the trajectory has changed and the season has changed, and forget about everything that's happened, because there are tangibles that you have to take away from the season moving forward for LAFC in many different situations. But is it a good sign? For sure, being able to do it with so many players missing, being able to do it with Vela not playing, things like that. Not to rain on people's parades, but neither of them will be getting fired. So there's that. It's just a thing of, I think LAFC just hopped on the scene so hot, and probably to an extent spoiled us from a fan perspective, from a media perspective, from just soccer in general. And I think that we forget 2 years ago, this was a team that did something that we've never seen in this league. Sure, they didn't win MLS Cup, but they still had a season that you have to remember. In the way that they put this team together, it probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that idea Thornton had of like, let's bring these young players in. We see so much of like, yeah, these players could be better from South America, but Sifu was one of Ecuadorian's best players before LAFC found him. Younger players, the prospects. Atuesta, same thing with him, even though he wasn't really on the national roster radar because of so many talented players that play in Europe in that position. Diego Rossi obviously came from big clubs. Brian Rodriguez. I mean, these are players that are very, very talented. And sure, I think while there's a fear mentality of being like, hey, this process hasn't worked, I think that it's a decision that they made from the beginning. And I think Bob says this a lot to his credit. When LAFC started, they needed to build an identity. They needed to think about something. And that's what they said. This is going to be our identity. This is going to be our idea. Sure, there's probably a lot of situations that were questionable, but if you look at some of the best players in the past few seasons that they've had, Atuesta was part of that. Eddie Segura's been part of that. A lot of these players have been part of that. And there's also teams around the league that's like down the street in Carson that the majority of their new players are players coming in with no MLS experience, and they're getting it done. So there's a lot of variables that you could kind of balance and look at. Illustration 100%. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be. I'm just saying that idea that they had, I think, is pretty solid in the way that they've been able to do it. That being said, to LAFC Live's point this whole year, they already knew coming in that this was MLS Cup or bust. So that's why the expectations have been so elevated. That's why the outrage has been so elevated, because that's what people expected this season. So I think they were hit hard. They were reeling backwards, and they have to try to figure this out. Whether or not that happens and that changes going forward with the I guess system that Edge was mentioning with Thornton and Bob is to be said. But I've said this many times, Bob will get the respect that he deserves as an MLS coach, as an icon. He'll decide what he wants to do. I would not be surprised to see him back next year. And I would not be surprised to see him continue.
Live shook his head. Look, I'm honest. I would not be. I would also say that I would not be surprised if Bob Bradley comes back next year. But I mean, we don't need to get into that. But just to add on to your point, Andy, and Edge's point, the only difference about this year is the first couple of years when they were killing and they had the MLS experience that Edge was mentioning. You had the Walker Zimmerman, you had the Bader Shores, you had the Lee Wynn. This year, the biggest criticism that I've had is you only brought in Corey Baird, Kim Moon-Wan, and Marco Falfon, while the rest of the league reloaded and brought experience. That's been my biggest criticism. Like this is supposed to be MLS Cup or bust, and everybody had these expectations. Yes, I know Brian. Yes, I know Chiqui Palacios. I know you mentioned Jose Cifuentes. I know they're very talented players, but when LAFC went through that 8-game struggle, who was the leader? Too many young guys. I think that was a problem. We were asking who's the leader in this team. Obviously we know Vela wasn't leading. He doesn't. He doesn't portray those characteristics that we would see of a leader, right? But I think that's what hurt this team in that 8-game stretch in the losing team, is that they didn't have that experience. Yeah, you have Jordan Harvey, but he's not really playing. And I think that is one of the criticisms to Edge's point, is like you need at least somebody that has played and has been a leader. None of those players, I think, just didn't have that leadership thing. Now I see Chicho. I see Chicho as a leader. I see him just the way he carries himself, just how everybody is attracted to him and stuff, you know. So I think that's one thing has been missing. Hopefully Chicho can bring in that, and even Eduardo Tuesta. I think this brings up a great point. We saw Eduardo Tuesta. He got on Kim Moon-Wan. Chris in the chat says, he says, one question for everybody: did everyone see the argument between Atuesta and Kim Moon-Wan during the game? And then after Moon walked off the pitch pissed and said nothing to anyone, shake hands. Curious what people think. Live, what were your thoughts on that altercation? I guess is the word. I don't know what to call it.
I liked it. I loved it. Atuesta, he finally, somebody stepped up and has been stepping up as far as leadership role. I like that he plays with like fight. He does not fire under his stomach. He's not afraid to get in someone's face if it's his own teammate or slap someone across the face. Well, he probably didn't do that, but
I don't know about that.
Figuratively, yeah, that's what he said. But it's nice to see someone sit up Bella with the armband and was just huffing and puffing, throwing his hands up, crying and whatnot. So it's nice to see Atuesta show something, of a leader on the pitch. And for Kim Moon-Wan walking off, that was kind of weird. I mean, you're new to the team. I mean, don't be. I mean, you're here to like impress the teammates, and you want to get your starting position back, correct? I mean, you were on international duty, I believe. So, I mean, that's not the way to go about it. You should listen to a guy who's been here since the first season and listen to what he has to say. That's just my opinion on that, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And yeah, we'll see.
I think the other thing I should add on to that, Jesus Murillo was also yelling at him, or I should say yelling, because they were also having that. I don't know if that the TV showed that, but watching it from the press box, I didn't catch Eduardo Tuesta yelling at him, but I caught Jesus Murillo yelling at him. We're having an aggressive discussion. I like that I saw that from Tuesta, but I was surprised Murillo did that. Just to Kim Moon-Wan, I think he might have been pissed because Chicho didn't play on the ball twice, and he's running up and down the flank. And I'll get into a little bit more into that. But like Edge, what were your thoughts on that altercation?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Like I mentioned earlier, I think there needs to be accountability with these losses. Everybody wants to say it's a team game, but when it's a loss, everybody says it's a team loss, and then there's no accountability there. At the end, like, these losses have to be identified, the reasons behind them, and it's obvious that there was a lack of accountability in those games. So I think Atuesta is trying to, make players be accountable for their mistakes, especially towards these last minutes. And that's my take on it. And I think there needs to be more of it. It doesn't just have to be Atuesta, like you mentioned. It was also Murillo, which I think is ironic because he's out of position a lot of times too.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thought. I was like, Murillo should probably be
hugely out of position because of that goal. But I honestly think, when we had the 4-3-3 position, it was a nightmare for me because I've always had a problem with our fullbacks. Palacios is decent, but Farfan and Blackman, they're all right fullbacks. But like, when you look at really good teams in the MLS, usually their fullbacks are pretty freaking good. And I don't feel like our fullbacks are ever that great, and they're always caught up too far up. And it leaves us with two center backs, and we're always screwed when we're doing a high press, and it drives me nuts. So this 3-5-2 formation has been a lot better because when we have the wing backs now, not fullback, but wing backs up front, now we have three center backs to kind of cover our assets better. And we could experiment a little bit more up front with the wing backs.
Yeah. Andy, what are your thoughts? Because we haven't seen this from Eduardo Tuesta. I think this is what I think I was waiting for from somebody, to step up and, have the did Kim Moon-Wan deserve that? I'm not too sure, but like, at least there's some accountability. What were your thoughts on that?
I think that this goes hand in hand with what Bob has been saying. I think I asked him after it was the SKC game. I like to do this when I'm at the stadium. I always look because Bob, for some reason, gets on the field and talks to players for a long, long time. So I always look who he's talking to. And that day he talked to Atuesta for a while. And I asked him after that game, like, what was that conversation about? And he was like, we're just trying to build his leadership and his development. I think that conversations like that in those moments go a long way, realizing what LAFC is dealing with right now, that they need these points. And I think that the end of that game was so nervy, so unusual for LAFC because they probably wanted to press per usual, but Bob and everybody's like, no, we need to win this game. Like, stay in your position, like, don't get out of line. And I think in a sense that was Atuesta kind of just remembering Bob telling him like, hey, like we're a collective, we need to, everybody needs to be together all the way through 90 minutes. If there's one message Bob has said this whole season is everybody being tapped in for 90, which has been reasons why they've lost games in the past. And if you see moves like that towards the end of a game where they're trying to close out, that's another downfall of them probably thinking like, hey, we're going to go through the same thing that we've been dealing with all year, like LAFC Live said, and somehow they're going to find a way to get an equalizer and we're going to drop these points here. I mean, that own goal, I tweeted this and people, reacted to it well, but that own goal might have saved LAFC season, as crazy as it's that's not an exaggeration. It's not, but I think Atuesta in that moment realized how important that was. And I think that that's another one of those growing steps for not just him, for the team, realizing like, hey, we need to close this game out however possible. And if we're not all in sync, if we're not all doing what we need to do, we're not going to be able to do that. So once again, I think it's a little bit of a learning curve and a little bit of a sense of optimism for LAFC fans that these things are happening now, whereas maybe a month or two ago, we probably wouldn't have seen that happen.
Yeah, and I pulled up the quote from Bob Bradley. He was asked about this, and this is Bob's quote. He said, I think as a team, we have to hold each other more accountable, essentially saying he didn't have a problem with the altercation. When I saw that, I saw two things, right? When you think of Kim Moon-Wan, this is the way I look at it. When you think of Kim Moon-Wan, you don't necessarily think of him as this great defender, right? This great right back, right? So what is Kim Moon-Wan's job there to do, right? To be an offensive threat. to run up and down the line, right? Well, he ran up and down the line, and he ran towards the end of the line essentially, but Chicho just didn't pass him the ball those 2 times. And he's been used to Carlos Vela passing him the ball, and that's where Kim Won this season has been the playmaker. So when you haven't gotten the ball twice, there's going to be a little bit of frustration, right? Because you're in there, and your job, as if I'm Kim Won, my job is to go up around the line and attack. And to your point, Andy, maybe that's not what they needed from Kim Won, right? They needed him to be back. But I think Kim Won's like, yo, let's literally put them away. Let's add another goal. I think that was his mindset, and he didn't get the ball. And then he's getting chewed out by Eduardo Tuesta, and then Murillo. I don't know if Murillo has any room to talk, to be honest with you. Like just the way he's cost, even Chris here in the chat says that Murillo has cost us 2 games. So I think if it was Eduardo Tuesta, it's a different story. But Murillo, I'm just like, come on, Murillo. I don't know if you should be the one stepping up here and having this type of conversation. And I think maybe Kim Won feels that way. But if you also look at it, right, I do think Kim Won should have dropped back, and maybe he should have noticed that. But I also think if I'm also Kim Won, we haven't won a game 3-2. We need to put another goal in. You know what I'm saying? So I do see both sides. I do like that Eduardo Tuesta got on him, but I don't like that Murillo got on him, because I don't think Murillo should be doing that when he's costing the team goals in games. But I think also like LA, I didn't feel comfortable with LAFC, and even live said at the start of this podcast, or I didn't think LAFC was going to win 3-2. I was like, yo, I think they need a fourth goal just in case they give up another one, But go ahead.
Did anybody notice at the end of the game, like the last 5 minutes, Murillo kept telling the team to go up, go up. He kept doing this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Absolutely not. Like, we do not need to go up. Did anybody else notice that? He did it repetitively.
He's always going like this. I don't know if he's dancing or what he's doing, but he's always saying, go up, go up.
Yeah, and it's like the last 5 minutes of the game. And I'm like, what are you doing? Absolutely not. We need to go back. Like, you can't. It was driving me nuts. He literally did it like 3 or 4 times.
He's probably just trying to get the line a little upfield, not to be as deep. But this is what I mean in that same sense, is like, I'd rather have my players yelling at each other in that moment than not saying a damn thing personally. Like,
no, exactly. That's the first time that
wants to yell at somebody. Go ahead. You guys need to show the passion and get the points. If not, then we're not doing anything. We're not doing what we need to be doing. We're not trying to fight for the players. We're not trying to make things different. So I mean, I agree that maybe Murillo shouldn't be yelling at another defender, but at the end of the day, I'm with it. I'm with anybody having any of those conversations, because that's what, like Bob said, you got to hold each other accountable. And if you see something in that moment that's a dire moment for the standings, and Bob says it every game here on out, this is a 6-pointer for them, basically, with the direct opponents that they're playing. So, they got to take these games. Everyone has to be, play with the same passion. If not, then they lose a few games where we're back having the same conversations we were about 2 months ago.
And
yeah, no.
Back on the fullback thing too. Like, when these last minutes are dying out, like we don't, like, once again, we have a fullback problem, and people don't really talk about it. But like,
yes,
when I see people attacking us on the flanks, and I see either Moon or Raheem or Farfan there, I am literally like pissing my pants, because I'm like, these guys are not gonna fucking defend our back line. Like, and it never fails. They just get right through them, and I'm like, they're at best wingbacks, but they're not fullbacks.
Yeah.
When we're trying to, like, even when we're trying to play a 4-3-3, I'm like, are you nuts? Like, having Moon and Farfan on the other side as fullbacks is like suicide. Like, we're just not going to win this. And it never fails. I don't think we've ever won a game when they're like fullbacks. It's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, because I think the counterattack, depending who the team is, it's easier. But yeah, we'll see. Because the reason why the formation has changed, the way I see it, is because of Carlos Vela and Brian Rodriguez and Chicho, and at the time you had Diego Rossi, right? So you had to play with the back four so you can have the most attacking up top. But the only problem was you're more vulnerable on the back line. So I'm very interested to see when Carlos Vela and Brian Rodriguez get back. Because that's gonna be interesting, right? If Carlos Vela is healthy, you're gonna want to put him up there. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's with Chicho, you play him up top. So that's gonna be interesting. So let's talk about Carlos Vela. Live, how are you feeling about Carlos Vela?
Well, once he's healthy and comes back, I wouldn't start him. That's just my thing.
You want to start him? Why? Why are you being a madman right now?
No, I'm not. We've won 2 games, right, without him, and then the other 8 he was playing and we didn't
But
win.
do you feel do you feel this team is better without Carlos Vela this season if he's healthy?
Hey, the chemistry doesn't lie, does it?
We're talking about two games that haven't really changed the thing.
I know. I'm just saying that if he comes back, you got to earn your spot.
Okay, Edge, what are your thoughts on Carlos Vela? I think that's a hot take for sure. He's the highest paid player in the MLS. I don't think the highest paid player will have to earn his spot back. I just don't think so.
I think Carlos Vela is the best team in LAFC and in the MLS by far. And
he's the best player? Is that what you mean?
Player. Sorry, yeah. Did I say something? Yeah, player in the MLS. And I think what we've seen of Carlos Vela this season, I don't know what that is. My assumption is it's contract talks, problems with the front office. I don't know what it is. But I think his form has not been – I think it's been psychological. And if they could fix that when he comes back, whether it's renewing his contract, giving him what he wants, I don't care if he wants more money. He's worth it. He's an elite player. If he wants $6 million a year, give him $6 million a year. I don't care if he's 32 years old. When he's on, he's on. When you pay him what he wants, if that's his motivator, that's his motivator.
I don't think so. I don't think that's his motivator. But I agree with you on that point.
I don't know what it is, but whatever it needs, what he needs to be motivated, I think that's what needs to be given to him because he's that kind of elite player. And if he comes back ready to play, I think he's a starter. I think he's the captain, and I think he could help us win the cup. But if he comes back still pissed, without resolving his issues, whether it's with the front office, Bob Bradley, whoever it may be, then he should be on the bench because we have huge chemistry problems because of him. I don't know if the team – I think it was Rossi wanting to leave. I think it was Vela having problems with the front office, and I think it was just a virus in the locker room. That's my assumption. I have no idea what it really was at the end of the day, but that's my assumption. So – but like I said, if Vela figures it out, I don't think he's injured. I think if he figures it out with the front office and he comes back happy, then all the better. And I think LAFC will be much better with him.
Oh, look, those are interesting takes. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Wow, man. We had this conversation a few days ago, but for me, it's more concerning that Vela hasn't played in much, I guess, in these past 2 seasons. And I know people want to bring all these other factors into play, which are what is fine. It's understandable, and nobody, I guess, really does know because with Vela, we really won't know anyway. But I think the fact of the matter is that he just hasn't played, and the same way I mentioned 2019 earlier in the argument, it was something incredible that we've never seen before from MLS, from an MLS player, and we know he has that quality, but is he really able to get back up there right now? Is he physically able to get back up there and sustain a season the way that MLS is and play these midweek games and play and score the way he did in 2019? I don't know. And I think that his decision, his contract, his mentality, whatever you want to call it, weighs heavy on what LAFC does next. Obviously, the same way with Bob, I think that if Vela says he wants to stay, he's staying. If he says he wants to go, shake hands, thank you very much. Part of our history, have a good night. But I think moving forward, I don't think that it's a terrible idea to think about life without Carlos Vela for the next season and beyond. I just think that the way that this season has gone, the way that last year went, obviously with the pandemic and different things, it's unfortunate. But once again, those injuries add up. And sure, maybe he's not 100%, I guess, injured, or maybe not 100% in it, which I could see that more than him not being injured. But to Gio's point, if he's healthy, he's playing, and if he's playing, is he good? Is the question, because we saw him come back a little bit this season, and there was games that he just frankly wasn't good. There were games that he just wasn't in it, and I know that it was during a situation where the team itself wasn't at its best. But from a player that had such a great 2019, for him to be at, I guess that up and down caliber that we've seen him in the few times that we've seen him this year, I think is the most worrisome out of anything else, whether it's contract, whether it's front office, whether it's coach, whatever the case may be. So I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability, because he's a great player. We all know that. I'm just saying that maybe for LAFC moving forward is not the best idea.
Yeah, I think we can talk about that later, but I want to get more into this. We got a great comment. JP says Vela had no one to help him. I guess he's talking about Rossi was cold, B-Rod and Arango on fire, and they will make life easier for Vela when he is back. I 100% believe that. I agree with that comment. I think also Rossi not being able to do what he's done kind of, limited the options when teams could just pinpoint on Carlos Vela. Right now you have Chicho, Brian. Hopefully he comes back and does the same thing. Keeps his form. That's the biggest thing. But if you tell me you got Brian Rodriguez, who's 100% in, Chicho Rongo doing what he's doing, and you have Carlos Vela healthy, that is a scary attack. That's a scary attack, right? What may be bothering Carlos Vela outside of the injuries, I do feel like it's either I'm gonna assume it's either the head coach or the front office. For him to, I keep bringing this up, but for him to do that interview with Thun and say, I miss playing in Europe and hinting at that, right? He never does that. He's not the type of player to show his hand. That to me told me that he was pissed off. He was either pissed off at the front office or pissed off at Bob Bradley. Someone, I don't know. And, obviously that weighs. And, you saw that weighed on Diego Rossi. Bob Bradley was asked about that, But, Rossi was already checked out of here. Could Vela be potentially feeling the same way? Maybe if he doesn't like some of the moves or what's going on. Yeah, I mean, and it's a contract year, so he has a lot going on. Does he have to move his family, this and that, right? But also to see what Chicho's doing and what Brian's doing, okay, maybe I can come back a lot sooner. Maybe, because there is a lot. Like I feel like when your team's not doing good, I'm not saying this is him, but like I don't know how motivated you're going to be if you're like in last place, right? To want to come back and help your team scratch to get into the playoffs. But now, outside looking in, it's looking a lot more optimistic. If I'm Carlos Vela, I'm seeing what Chicho is doing. You're making the game easier for me. I just got to distribute the ball. You can actually score. You can do the things that we've been missing. What maybe Carlos Vela had been asking a long time. I think the game is going to get easier for Carlos Vela if Chicho can continue to score and if Brian Rodriguez continue to do what he does, dance down the line. I think it looks more optimistic now, but we'll have to see what happens, and we'll have to see Carlos Vela. But by no means do I feel like, even though he's 32 years old, I think he can still bond. I think when healthy, he's still the best player in this league. Let's get into one because we've gone over now. Let's get into tomorrow's game live. What are you expecting for tomorrow's game? It's an away game. Obviously, less than 3 days since the home game against RSL.
Well, I know it's in Austin. They obviously have had a horrible season. So I'm hoping we can get 3 points away. I know West is not playing apparently due to his ankle. So next man up, no excuse. And I obviously think probably Murillo will have the armband maybe since he likes to yell all the time now. So I'm hoping for 3 points. I'm really hoping for 3 points. Chicho hopefully still firing all cylinders, and we'll get a clean sheet. So I'm predicting hopefully 2-0 LAFC. That's what I'm going.
Edge, what are your thoughts for tomorrow's game?
West being out really concerns me. I also heard that Ibiaga might be out because of yellow card accumulation, and that terrifies me because thinking of Farfan in that position is very scary to me. He's been a really bad center back, and I am concerned about that. I don't know if Bob will go back to a 4-3-3 with Murillo and Fall and Palacios and Moon. That would be the 4-3-3. If he does do the 5-3-2, or the 3-5-2, I would say don't put Farfan as center back no matter what. And I heard Blackman might be back. I would prefer Blackman at center back way more. And I know everyone thinks this is controversial, but I would probably rather see Jordan Harvey at center back. That's how much I don't want Farfan as a center back. I think if we leave Jordan Harvey at the very, very back, he's not that bad. As a fullback at his age, sure, he couldn't run back fast enough. But as a center back, if you have him at the very back with Murillo, I think it's a better option, to be honest, than Farfan. But above all, I would prefer Blackman if he is better. We're very limited on options. Our defense is all injured right now, so we don't have many options. But Yeah, and I don't want this to be a trap game. That's what I'm concerned about. Atuesta out, Ibiaga out. We go in overconfident because it's last place, Austin, but it's their home. I just don't want it to be. I just want the players to go in with a really level head and try to get that win at no matter what. I think it's going to be a war, and they're going to have to really fight for that win. It's not going to be an easy win.
Yeah, talking about last place, we have Austin FC's #1 fan here, Andy Diosa. Go ahead and put on the hat. He's made it public. So how you feeling? How you feeling about your Austin FC facing LAFC tomorrow?
Well, as a longtime Austin FC fan, there's no better time to get back on track than to play this weak LAFC. Tomorrow's gonna be ugly, man. That's all I know. Tomorrow's gonna be an ugly game for both sides because obviously Austin needs some points. They're about to be the worst team in the league soon if they don't get it together. But hey, a few points and they'll be up there. Look at all 3 Texas teams on the bottom. Ain't that something? Yeah, they just need to end the season on a good note, on something that makes them feel positive because it's the first season. Obviously, it was expected for it to be hard for them, but it wasn't expected to be this bad. And I've said it many times on this podcast as well. I think Josh Wolf is a good coach. I think they have a good team. They're obviously missing pieces, and it's not working for them right now. But trials and tribulations for LAFC though coming in, it's going to be tough because of all the things you guys have mentioned. And not only that, man, this game being such a quick turnaround for a lot of these people that are going to be starting. Maybe they're not used to that. Like they're players that are used to being subbed and coming off the bench or whatever the case may be. This is a true test because Austin's not going to back down. Obviously, they're home. They know that at this point they don't really have much else to lose. They're just going to play hard as they can every time. There's 2 things about Austin though: either they don't score at all or they score goals in bunches. So if LAFC's biggest test is defensively, because LAFC could go in there and win 1-0, and it's like, cool, job done, 3 points, see you later, we out of here. But if Austin does score at least 1, then I'd be nervous because, man, the way you guys have been talking about LAFC's defense and how things have been going, that'll be tricky. But I do expect LAFC to win that game. I think that they know what the task is at hand, and they know that they're on a path right now that could potentially get them back into the playoffs, and the loss against the last place team will not help them at all. So while I mourn for my Austin FC, my beloved favorite team since I was born, I think LAFC goes in there, gets 3 points, and continues this great story that we're living now.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be an interesting game with Austin FC because if you every game is a must win. Here quoting Bob Bradley, but it's like you can't lose any game, and you're going to have these quick games, these Wednesday weekend games. So I think Austin FC they struggle. I think they got smacked around their last game. I know. Talk about wanting to coach out Austin FC fans. I know I keep seeing a lot of Josh Wolf out. Wolf out hashtags over there. So I mean, there's a lot of pressure on that side, even for them to get a somewhat of a positive result, right? Whether it's you get a win, it's also a Wednesday game, so we'll see what happens. Ed, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest curses we have this year is just our reputation from 2018 and 2019 as being like one of the best, if not the best, MLS team, and everybody comes every game against us like they're freaking trying to win the MLS Cup. And it's like Austin is going to really want this win because they've been doing so bad. It'll become a symbolic win for them, just as when Galaxy has been doing bad for 3 seasons, that when they win LAFC, it's kind of like their MLS Cup trophy, and it's symbolic to them, and they own that. Stuff like that. Like, it's for some reason.
I don't know if that's true, but go ahead.
MLS winning LAFC to them is like a symbolic trophy, and it's like getting out of hand. We're not that good this season, guys. Chill out. This isn't the freaking MLS Cup game. Like, chill out, So I see Austin really wanting to win us tomorrow. Will they win? I don't think so. At the end, that desire is not going to be enough to give them the win, but I think it'll still be a dangerous game, and it could be a trap game, and they have to be careful.
Yeah, live. Go ahead.
Point. Because you said that every team wants to beat us because it's like their MLS Cup. I think we just suck, and we just make them look really good. Every other team. I want to be honest with you. We just look so bad at times that, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like telling them to chill out. Like we're not that good this season, guys. It's not a trophy in any way. Like we're not.
So as Austin FC, so if Andy's team beats Andy, you're gonna have to chill out, bro. Yeah, I think that the clear message is to Andy: you need to chill out for whatever reason. You guys win tomorrow.
Hey,
Okay?
man, I'm just gonna say this. All right, I'm just gonna say this. The last time that LAFC played Austin FC, if I'm not mistaken, was 2-0, right? That was
LAFC won.
That was down at 2-0. LAFC had Carlos Vela, had Eddie Segura, had basically their team. So, and they had Diego Rossi. It was Rossi and Vela, if I'm not mistaken, that day. So, and that wasn't a pretty game. I mean, they won and LAFC controlled, but Austin is, as I've said this year about basically every team in the West, Vancouver, and these are not pushover teams. And I'll tell you one thing: I've watched a lot of Austin FC this year, and it's not a pushover team. So, can't go in there too confident. But once again, I do expect LAFC to be able to pull it out.
But they were also a new shiny team, so they were like really, really motivated when they played us. And right now they're like in a downward trajectory and momentum. So I could see, it could be against them too.
Yeah. Well, here let's wrap things up, guys, because we've gone over. But yeah, no, look, big game for tomorrow for LAFC. I think every game moving forward is going to be big for them. We'll see what happens. Obviously, a lot of players are going to have to step up. Hopefully, Chicho can still, work some of his magic, have some of the hold-up play up there. Brian Rodriguez is going to be available, so you got another weapon up there. I guess a lot of people are going to be curious about the formation, who's going to step up in that. But we'll see. I do feel, obviously, LAFC is favored, but I do not think it's going to be an easy game. Austin FC is definitely going to want to get the win. So we'll see what happens. So we're going to wrap things up for LAFC Live, for Edge, Andy Diosa. This is Gio. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Take care.